the training.
All right, excellent. I shall start us off. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the July 14th, 2021 Octant Community Meeting. I haven't done any of these in a while, so it's going to be exciting. Got a fresh release out the oven, 0.22, and we've got a few discussion points today, so we'll jump right into it. All right, let's kick this off. Desktop 1, share all the things. All right. All right, here we go. So 0.22 release, we've got attendees and affiliation. Feel free to add these on the agenda if you want to, or if you just want to hang out, totally cool. Mostly VMware folks. We've got our status update 0.22. So this was somewhat waited on for a little bit. And mostly my take on this release was that it solves a lot of the existing access error checks that pops up with CRDs. And sometimes when these access errors kicks in, Octant doesn't show anything at all. And so it's always been a back and forth between these, but hopefully this is the last time. And if not, we'll keep working on it. We've got a couple of issues here. They're mostly internal, but if you pick these up, for example, these created WebSocket streaming interface and exported config dash and related interfaces, these are mostly done by Wayne and some internal VMware folks to support some projects going on. It should not really affect anyone, but if you are consuming these public interfaces, I would like to know about it. It would be a very interesting use case, but essentially, if anyone's interested, it's using Octant as a WebSocket manager. So it's kind of, you're just importing Octant and you're just relying on it to become a server. And it's not even running it headlessly. I don't think that's an accurate description of it, but you're kind of using Octant's as like, I don't know, it's kind of a weird, I don't have a good set of words to describe what's happening there. But you're kind of using the Octant's WebSocket connection and the data that it streams to essentially create your own views. Which is something that I don't expect general users to be using. We've got a few other things. Namespace list to be expandable. I believe I have a thing of Octant running right now. I do. So I think this is just this just looks like a show more type of thing. If you have a lot of namespaces. Of course, we don't have a designer, so but we do have show more and show less up and running. Let's see, anything else that's interesting? Updated, broken, so link fixes, and then and then there's some form stuff. I think there was 2 minor form fixes. So we're still tinkering up with some straggling things after the huge form updates that we've done a few releases ago, and so these are going to continue trickling in. So if you don't see your form fix in here, it will come soon. Make some noise about it. Cool. So that I think about covers the release. Does anyone else want to bring anything up that I didn't talk about?
Yeah, I want to bring a couple points. I think this was Vikram's first release, right? So congrats, Vikram, on doing that. I think you, and also I think this one beats some records because it's I checked the timestamp. I think it went out 9 minutes before the community meeting. So that's a pretty high bar set right there.
Yeah, right. We totally released it on Wednesday, like we said we would.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just wanted to, thank you for the effort on this release. And regarding the TypeScript bug fix, how to communicate these to our extended community of plugin authors. Now, the experience of creating or developing plugins in TypeScript for Octant should be easier, should be possible now. Because I believe the original problem was there were compilation errors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So the issue was previously there were issues with TypeScript. So first, the components were outdated. Then the components were updated, but it turns out there were some errors with the reflection and so on that were preventing the generated components from being correct. So now everything should work correctly. We can test the latest TypeScript code in the plugin library for Octant repo. And then once that checks out, we can release the plugin library version 0.22 so that it corresponds with Octant 0.22, and we can be sorted, and the latest code will be on NPM, and everyone can use it from there. So that's really good, and kind of brings things to where they should be, I think.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. And to answer the second half of that question, how do we communicate that? Really, if someone's trying to build a plugin and it's looking for a component that doesn't exist, but it happens to exist on master of Octant right now, we'll just tell them to upgrade
it. For sure. Okay. Yeah, I know a couple of users who will be really interested in this. Thank you.
Cool. And for folks who don't know about this other repo, it's a plugin library for Octant. So we use something called a Yeoman generator. It does a lot of the scaffolding and helper libraries to create these components for our TypeScript plugins. So yeah, this is going to be pretty much the tooling of choice if you're building a TypeScript plugin. All right. Well, let's see. That is not the agenda. This is the agenda. Cool. So that about wraps up the release. We have one discussion point on the agenda. We want to talk about an 0.23 sprint. We're changing the way we work just ever so slightly because we've done some introspection about the way we've been working the last couple of sprints, and we wanted to try something different, see if we could do better. And we have this new projects layout board. It's not new, but they describe things a little differently than we've done in past releases. So here we are. We have an example of the 0.22 release where we did list out a few goals, and we've got essentially a very generalized description of what this release does. And for 0.23, I believe we are going to try to take some time out of this community meeting to figure out what this release is going to be.
Yeah, that is the plan. Yeah, Sam, if you click into the 0.23 project, that will have a in progress kind of checklist there. We started brainstorming various ideas in the to-do notes yesterday. I created this in progress checklist of the items we needed to go through to be able to kick off the sprint. One of those first items was setting the sprint theme. We had a good discussion around various themes, and I also took the time to reorganize the backlog project, which is the one that kind of handles all of our outstanding issues. Y'all might have saw a message in the Octant Slack channel around a new column called themes. Inside, so I originally tried to create a column for each theme. That was unwieldy. Like the horizontal scrolling was just way too much. So we have this big vertical scrolling thing for now. If the mode of operating, the mode of working with themes works really well, we'll adjust our labels to reflect that, and then this kind of will go away and we'll use labels in the future. But I didn't want to go and redo all the labels, and then after 2 sprints we're like, we don't like this. So we're going to try it this way first. I know it's a lot of vertical scrolling. I apologize for that. But within this themes column, I started to break out, I used notes to kind of divide it up. So under each note, there is, the note is like a theme, and then there's the issues that kind of align with that theme. We can also add a little more detail to the notes should we need to, but some of them are self-descriptive, others are not. Like the applications one here, for example, probably needs a description that says this is about the application's view of Octant. Not the very specific module. I believe we call it workloads right now. Maybe we call it applications. Maybe we change the name. I don't remember. But so anyway, I wanted to get folks' feedback on themes they've been thinking about since our discussion yesterday. Maybe we could spend some time going through the themes here in this column if that's helpful. Yeah, kind of take it from there. So, what do folks think would be helpful?
Kicking off the discussion here, my take is that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit around the space of remote debugging. So, in other words, you have the infrastructure layer, whether or not your deployments, config maps, and secrets are wired up correctly in a way that lets your applications to run. But also, let's say your application is not behaving correctly on Kubernetes and you've configured everything, at least on the infrastructure side, correctly. How do you start debugging that? And there are already a whole multitude of tools available in the ecosystem for this. So the next step is to figure out how we can use Octant as a bridge to make those tools discoverable, or start re-implementing some of these debugging, remote debugging tools into Octant natively or as a plugin.
Are you talking about debugging as debugging or more like troubleshooting?
What's the difference?
Well, debugging when you say debugging, I'm thinking debugging the code, essentially, code running somewhere. But if troubleshooting is, trying to figure out why something is not working, and then you need to go and check the statuses and go from one object to another and so on. So it's a slightly different task. And thinking about those two a little more clearly, I think troubleshooting is the one that we are trying to get focused as much as we can. Basically, trying to help our users figure out what's going on. Something is wrong. I have no idea what it is. Let's find the best way to help them do that. Where debugging is like, oh, I know there's a problem in this component. What is the problem? I need to, do the deep dive and inside that component set some breakpoints and debug the actual code.
Yeah, because so far I see Octant more focused on the infrastructure side of the application, but even with that focus, we still, there's still room for improvement. For example, I was running a scenario this morning, trying to see, how to troubleshoot a multi-container pod issue. Doing it just using the regular kubectl tools and using Octant. And with Octant, I completed the troubleshooting in half of the steps. So that's good, but it could be less than that if all the relationships will be, for example, in the resource viewer. I see resource viewer like I don't know if the default view, but if all the relationships, for example, all the containers inside a pod right now, that is not visible in resource viewer, or a more clear relationship or diagram between all the pods that are running or scheduled to run in a specific node. For example, if we complete that, infrastructure visibility relationship side of the things, I think at least for the infrastructure, resource viewer will be really helpful for troubleshooting. And yeah, I agree with Milan. I don't know if that's the academic definition for that or not, but I understand debugging more for code. It will be really awesome. But I see that as a further step, first just getting the infrastructure troubleshooting right, reliable, clear, simple. So those are my 2 cents on that.
Cool. Okay. So what I'm hearing is we want to stay still strictly on Kubernetes logic on the infrastructure side. And it sounds like we want to be investing more on Resource Viewer.
Yeah, I think I think that's a good assessment, Sam. Also, what I'm hearing is that our investment probably needs to be in what I would refer to as a general theme of object status. Right, like object status is very broad. So I would like just saying that is very broad, but I would include that to mean the actual like status in the cluster of your objects, the relationships that those objects have with other objects is part of that status. The actually, if you go to the backlog themes lane there, and you scroll down, there's one that I made for object status, which I think will show just kind of how I'm thinking about that. That might work. Yeah. But then you kill the filter. Yeah, you're just gonna have to scroll. I warned you. It was a lot of vertical scrolling. So that's object updating. So here's object status. So, yeah, there's just a lot of things in here around, better visibility into the terminating states. Can we visualize network policies and topologies? The one that David just created recently, which around, PVCs shown as okay when they're unbound or when they're not okay. And underneath this object status category, there's just a pretty wide list of things that all fall into this, what I think all three of you have described as being able to, I'll use the word troubleshoot, being able to troubleshoot your application and your objects running in a Kubernetes cluster, and along the lines of more of what David and I think Milan were saying is using the primitives from the API to do so, without extending it with third-party tooling, which I think is more along the lines of what Sam is suggesting. I think getting our foundational object status in a spot where it is really well defined and acting appropriately, having some sense of an object scorecard to represent the health of an object over time. They're a small window of time, but just over time. Once we have that in place, then we really can kind of open the floodgates on third-party tooling to go even deeper. But I'm hesitant to introduce third-party tooling when the foundation that we have isn't like rock solid already, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it.
I mean, it sounds like this would be a good candidate for this release as far as a release theme goes, and it was one of the ones that was discussed yesterday and is in the note for this release that Sam brought up yesterday. So unless anyone objects, and I agree that making sure the foundation is solid makes sense before we do anything else, and follows along the line of that note that came out from Joe Beta about platform whiplash, making sure the foundation is strong before making any changes on higher levels. So just making sure that the foundation is rock solid and it won't cause that sort of whiplash effect. So unless there are any objections, we can focus on this as our theme for this release.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And I absolutely agree with what you said, Wayne. I think there's still quite a bit we can do to improve on that. I mean, even like conditions, the way we show conditions now, it's probably not optimal. We use table for that. And it'd be nice to have something like maybe use like, I don't know, maybe clarity tags or some similar controls to display conditions. So there's a lot of, thank you, Sam. So there's a lot, I mean, this doesn't need to be table. The just should have those two available progressing fields shown and everything else displayed in tooltip or some secondary action. So there's a lot of improvements you can do there, and I think this is a good candidate that seems to be requested from our users quite a bit.
Great. Okay. So yeah, and I think just picking one and working through it the first sprint is probably a good idea anyway. So and I think it'll help people understand as we do it in the future. So object status is what we're going to call our sprint theme. So with that in mind, we want to set some goals for the sprint. Essentially, what is the success outcome of this 2 weeks of working on object status? What is it that we want to achieve? Is it reducing the number of steps that it takes to debug a workload using the PDF that David had sourced as how to troubleshoot things within Kubernetes? Is it creating a better view, creating a better default view for like Milan was just pointing out, certain data is formatted and structured in certain ways, and we could present it better. Like, what do folks see as some of the outcomes they would like for object status over the next 2 weeks? And we can browse through the column of the object status theme as well to kind of spark ideas and thoughts there too. So, but if anyone has any top of mind, feel free to share them.
Yeah, well, I'll try to summarize it, at least from my opinion. I think, all the important information is there, right? Octant is collecting everything we need, from the container status level up to all the objects necessary, at least from the Kubernetes infrastructure point of view. What I see so far is we need to condense that in a default view that requires less Kubernetes awareness or experience to interpret relationships and status, right? So, for example, the example I was mentioning, in Resource Viewer, I can see the status of the pod. That's a different problem. Now the pod is running, the pod is shown green, and it has two containers on the inside. I cannot see the containers, and one of the containers is in an error state, but the pod is running, so it's shown as green. But if I go to a different view, I think it's the overview summary, I can see the list of containers there. I can even watch the logs of each one of the containers. I mean, everything is there, but a default condensed view that gathers all the information will speed up the troubleshooting use case. That's at least my reflection so far.
Okay. Yeah, so I think there's something we want to be careful of with the goals, and this might be something we just have to practice and get better at. But ideally, our goals would be objective and not subjective. Like opinions about like saying something like make Resource Viewer better. That's not a goal. That's an opinion that we form, and we do something and we think it's better. But at the end of that thinking it's better, there's some goal or outcome that we want to be shooting for to really. And the reason this is important when you set a theme for a work cycle is that these goals are what we will use as a team to decide, did we achieve the outcome, did we achieve and accomplish the desired outcome of this theme for the work. And so just to help, I'm not saying this is one of them, but just to help the conversation, a theme or a goal, a success goal for this might be all objects accurately reflect their status in Octant as to match status is reflected in kubectl.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. So
right,
thank you, man.
Like that'll be a goal. and that's
Yeah.
testable. It's measurable, and we can say, hey, we did that. This is great. And then also that's something that we can tell users, hey, we did this. This is great. Yeah, and like you will no longer have
The double check.
yeah, you don't have impedance mismatch between this tool and this tool. So think of things along those lines, and yeah, just ideas, thoughts, and really anything. Maybe we can add that one since Milan, echoed it as well. But I would like to at least have 3.
Yeah, I think this one is important, I mean, like the issue that David opened, if kubectl tells something is wrong and we say it's green, that's wrong. That shouldn't happen. And I've seen some other issues where, kubectl reports one thing and we do another. So I think we need to be trusted tool and we need to be accurate showing this. It's like an instrument, if accuracy is not correct, people will not use it, and kind of same for the Octant. So we can definitely do a better job here. So I think that's a great goal.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the how on this. I mean, we are not solving the how. That I won't solve the how, but if we are using conditions for that, I don't know if that's the case for a multi-container pod that is running. The response from the controller is the pod is running, right? There's a problem with one container, but the pod is running. So I don't know how are we going to look into, for example, a pod to report something different or a partial failure if the controller reports at a high level. So, but that's just my mind guessing how are we going to do that. But no problem, we can go on.
So it sounds like there are 2 different concerns here when we talk about kube control, right? So we have the parity between when something is shown as an error in kube control and Octant does not. Are there any considerations for the other side where kube control says it's okay, but maybe Octant should be saying it's an error?
Yeah, I think that touches on what David was just saying with the difference between the status, the API status of a thing, pending, running, failure, and the conditions of that thing, terminating, crash loop back off, things that there are actions that are happening, and then there are the state of that thing as a result of those actions. And I think this first one is making sure that if something says it's running in kubectl, it says it's running in Octant, or if something says it's pending, or suspended, it's suspended. Making sure that all of those statuses are reflected appropriately. And then the subjective piece of what do we do with conditions? How do we flag things? What color do we make them? Can something be running but also have warnings on it? Or something be running and also have be orange or yellow, indicator with a warning icon, right? That is to me that's a different thing that is addressed from more of a UX, like object status UX approach, versus are these accurately reflecting the status, the status field without conditions.
Not only pods, but right?
Yeah, I would just say
Talking about
objects. Yeah, I would just say objects.
The next goal might be something along the lines of surfacing the status of objects in all appropriate places. I see a number of things within this particular theme in the theme column about like showing pod status in workloads, pods view. There are a number of just about like showing something in a desired place. So there could be a goal around just surfacing the status appropriately. And then we can select which tasks to tackle within that goal.
Yeah, I think the issues that I'm seeing that you're talking about are definitely they're like, I'm looking at it here and it says it's right, but then it's not right over here, and I'm looking at it here, or it shows an error in this place but not in this place. Consistency, I'm trying to think of the wording, but it's like, I guess consistent is would be the word. What else would it be like?
Is it possible there are places where it's just not shown? Where places, I mean, it looks like, which one was I looking at? Oh, showing the pod status and workloads.
Mm-hmm.
Is that,
Yeah, 201, show pod status and workloads.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, okay. So the phase, what's interesting about that one is it's explicitly calling out the difference between the phase that it's in, running or pending, and the status that's happening, which is like terminating or container creating. And I think, yeah, that is, this is directly one of the ones that comes up a lot with kubectl versus Octant.
If there aren't more that it looked, I thought there were more that were that could be encompassed by the idea of status being surfaced in more areas. But if that's not the case, then it's not a good goal. If it's just this one task. There's a lot to scroll through here.
I tried many different variations of it, and it's just,
no, it's great. Just the organization itself is wonderful. Thank you for doing this.
I think having something around conditions would be good. There are some open issues around showing conditions if they're detected, showing conditions for CRDs. I think having a way to surface conditions and view them, object status should take conditions into account, right? So there's like at least three classes. They're aligned with conditions. They touch different areas, but they definitely are a part of object status. And I think that would be a good goal, is to surface object conditions in Octant.
And they should be presented better. Sorry for repeating myself, but definitely I think that should be one of the low-hanging fruits.
All right, something like this, represent conditions with better UI and use to describe. I guess it's technically two things. Like, we're basically saying, like, make conditions, show conditions better. and there's a logic piece to it, and there's a UI piece to it.
Yeah, this one is kind of like teetering on that subjective because of like better UI, but like it's fine. It just as long as we're acknowledging it now, we can leave it in there.
We can sharpen it. Do we know specifically what about the UI that we don't like, that should be scrapped? I believe I heard something about tooltips. Maybe it's just not.
Well, I think like for CRDs in particular, they're not even there.
Yeah. What was the issue there? Like, together with the goal?
So currently we show them as a table, and I don't think there's a need for that. I mean, they should just be basically like a set of labels, and that they can be any arbitrary text, so they're not fixed. But we can show them maybe as a tags or something similar, clarity world, and then provide additional information either through tooltip or some other means on the side.
Yeah, so I don't mean to like cut you off. I think what you're saying is valid, but I just want to call out that we specifically have like setting the goals, and then right after this is go through the issues where we can discuss them in detail, get like add context, add opinions. But I want to get through these goals, and then we can go on to getting the issues that we're going to put into this sprint and then start to talk about them as a group.
Yeah, makes sense. I was just trying to clarify for Sam.
No, yeah, that's why it's
Hope
like
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
Sure, that works.
All right, cool. Let's move on to goal 3.
And then for number 3, I would like to hear from anyone else but me and Sam and Milan. So we're going to force Luis or Vikram or Felipe or Liam.
I can go. I'm not sure if this is a great suggestion, but I had some thoughts that I'd be happy to share. So one thing that I ran into recently is I was trying to port forward some ports that were listed as available because they were defined in the specification, but actually the pod that was running the services wasn't fully ready. So there was this niche behavior where basically I was trying to forward a port that was not active yet. And I forget exactly what the behavior was, but maybe something that would be useful, especially since Octant is like a graphical user interface, would be making some adjustments to prevent users from trying to do things that we already can predetermine and know that will not work correctly. So basically preventing known failures from occurring. I think that would be super useful, especially for someone like myself who isn't as familiar with Kubernetes and is also somewhat using Octant to learn a bit more about what's going on. And so for the specific port forwarding example, and this isn't documented in issues or anything, but I'm pretty sure this applies a bit beyond that as well. Just adding maybe indicators of like this resource is not yet done loading, so you can't complete these actions because we know they will fail. Would be super helpful. So I guess maybe
disabling the button.
Yeah, like a way to say this in a sentence would be prevent the known failures from occurring. I think that would be useful.
Yeah, I'm liking where this is going. As I look through the issues under our object status theme in particular, we have a class of issues that's like deleting a namespace and updating this thing, and you're not getting any status out of it as it's happening. It's almost like when objects are in transition, or when objects are changing their state, we're not doing a great job of representing the fact that we might want to hold off on taking action while they're in transition or while they're changing state.
Yeah, there's improve external IP status. Looks like provide better details when the external IP is not yet set, which seems to fall into the same category.
Yep. Yeah, there's definitely a class of issue here. That align with that. I think the wording that you used, Liam, was close. I think it was good. I'm trying to think.
Prevent known failures, something like that.
Like predictable failures.
Predictable failures.
Yeah, that
Just invalid actions, right? I mean, those are not valid action for that state.
Yeah, that's Milan. That's yes. Well, yeah, that is.
Yeah, and I see how this fits in the status. So that's an excellent point, Liam. If we do the status right, this is going to be the benefits, because in order to know if you can report forward, you need to know the status. So if we, based on status, we can just ask, can this object do port forward, and I don't know, either disable the button and do some other UI indication that that's not possible. So I think this is a great one.
Yeah, I think that related to one of the original goals is that regarding the YAML editor, to make it object aware. I mean, I also tested, because I created an object and I went to the YAML editor to change part of the spec that I know cannot be changed in a running state. I hit update and Octant didn't say anything. Right? Obviously, the change didn't happen. I went to a different view, came back to YAML editor, and the line wasn't there. So if you are a new user, probably you could start hitting update and update and update, and things that the API won't let you to update that field. So yeah, in line with what Liam is mentioning, and if Octant is also a tool that aims to lower the barriers for new Kubernetes users, yeah, will be helpful to have, or disable user actions for invalid requests, or at least some better error reporting, which is a totally different category. It's a category on its own. Better error reporting, I think it's a can of worms in itself. So I think in my mind that's related.
Okay. Yeah, great. Okay, so that's 3 goals. Everyone happy with those, or? Okay.
Yeah, those seem good.
Excellent. All right, so now we can move. We have about 15 minutes left before time, so I'd like to get the process started of going through the backlog and starting to identify issues that kind of align with this theme. The other thing that I wanted to call out is that I want to make sure that each sprint includes at least 3 items from the product excellent column. I think that it's important that we're always, so we can work to find items from product excellence that align with the theme, but generally I think it's important that we are also fixing bugs reported by users that get in their way. So that's just kind of the like, I guess, escape hatch there of like, if there are any bug issues that are blocking people or are important, we will try to always get 3 kind of baked into the sprint from the start. And they can be swapped out and changed as we go, but just like with anything, but just wanted to call that out explicitly. So with that, under the object status theme, there is, as we were scrolling through before, there are a lot of issues, and I guess we can just kind of work top to bottom, or we won't be able to get through all of them in this call. So what I want to do is just get the process started so that we can do this asynchronously. The kickoff of the actual sprint work is starting on Monday. So we do have the rest of this week to get things planned and get things in here. But yeah, this should be our primary focus. If you don't have an active issue that you're working on, our primary focus should be looking at issues and commenting on them, getting more context so that we can plan them into our ODOT 23, which is what we're going to do. We have another meeting set up tomorrow that we can record and post to YouTube that we'll use to continue this process. So with that out of the way, I guess let's just start going through them under object status.
All right, so we have the first item here. It's increased visibility to resources stuck in a terminating state. This one's kind of gnarly. Essentially, you could have resources when you try to delete, they're being terminating, but they use something called a finalizer, which suggests that there is another resource that is currently using it. And as a result, it becomes stuck in terminating. There's some hacks. You can pretty much just edit out the finalizer or patch it over JSON. Whether or not that's a good idea is debatable. That said, we could probably start off by, we don't necessarily have to solve this problem. This has increased visibility, so I don't know what that necessarily means. We could invent a new color, maybe create, I don't know, we have an object filter for this. Do we have an object filter for terminating? Maybe we do. Phase filter, maybe not. Or I think this might be one of those phase versus status things. So yeah. maybe there's a way to sort this stuff out. Maybe the first thing we want to do is just create some searchable group for these terminating pods or objects.
Yeah, I think what we do know is we know if there's a finalizer pending, we can get that off of the object. We can surface that there's a finalizer for the object. So we know that it's in deleting, terminating state, and then we also know that there's a finalizer associated with it. We could then also use some sort of opinion about what is a reasonable amount of time for an object to be deleting. I think Scott Andrews raised this on the original issue of like, how do you distinguish between stuck and something that is actually cleaning up? I don't know that we can do that reliably, but we can at least give insight into, hey, this thing's been trying to delete for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is. But like at some point when that time threshold has been reached, maybe we start to show it. Like there's a finalizer on this. It's been trying to delete for the last 3 hours. And then extend the actions grid. This is longer term, but that could lead to, okay, when something is stuck with a finalizer for a set period of time, add to the actions grid the ability to patch away the finalizer so it'll be removed, right? Like that's kind of like the incremental steps. So yeah, I think this is a good candidate. I actually run into this quite a bit, especially when dealing with CRDs and like external tooling, where I'm just like, let me plop this in the cluster and see what it does, and then I go and delete it, and it has a bunch of dependencies around things, and those things went away, and the finalizer is just there, and you literally see it for days and days and days. Knowing that the reason it's stuck deleting is because there's a finalizer would be useful.
agree.
I'm trying to figure out how to move this thing from backlog too.
Yeah, so it should be in the issue there. You scroll down, or on projects. You see where it says projects there? Click on the little gear icon, and then it will. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's multiple projects on the same page. In the right-hand menu, there's a projects that. Yeah, and then you just 23 and off of backlog.
Cool.
Yeah. So on to the next. I think the next one is a larger feature of like a larger body of work that involves some research and design, and is probably not a good candidate for our first try at themed-based sprints.
Too big. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some good context in there. I think it would be a great candidate for someone who wanted to play around with this on Friday and use like half of their day on Fridays to creep this forward. So good one to call out. It could potentially be a very fun one. The next in that list is 2641, which is the one David just created, and kind of actually like spurred the object status theme in my head, just like as a refresher, as a reminder. I think it is a good candidate for creating better. The next one, 566. That one is. So what we'll do is we're not spending a lot of time talking about these. So what I want to do is get some added to the sprint, and then we'll go and have discussions on the issue. That is the action item for everyone on the team after this community meeting, is to look at the issues that ended up in O.23. And if you don't understand it or you need more information, ask, and we're going to fill it out together. We're all thinking about object status this sprint. A little less context switching. It's going to be great. I just know.
Quick question. How many items, how do we scope what goes into this release? Because if we do everything from within this object status column, it's going to be too much, right? Like,
I agree.
Skipped one of them. So what goes in, what doesn't? And then should we not complete everything within this release? Does it just get tossed back into the backlog and we do another object status release at a later date? Do we continue, do we roll over the theme? And I'm sure I know these are things that we're working out, but I thought I'd surface them anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
While we're talking about it. Should we do another object status release following it, since we're already within the context of we're all thinking about it, we've been working on it? Do we do another one and try and wrap it up? Or do we move on to another theme?
So great questions. For what work goes in, I would say at least during the initial experiment, we can kind of use our judgments of like 2 issues per person. Some are small, some are big, some are medium, whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll just say 2 per person. What we get done, we get done. What we don't, we don't. To like establish just working this way. I think that's more important right now. I do understand that not finishing out all of the work items can, over a long period of time, which is what the Octant team traditionally has done, gets a little fatiguing. So the goal will be to move towards sprints that are completed in full. But as we establish this new way of work, I think we'll err on the side of less so that we can complete. And then now we have these categories to pull things in from, whereas before it was really difficult to know what to pull in. So I think just getting started with like 12 issues, which is a number I just snatched because 6 times 2, and seeing how that works, and and then if we get them all done, then we pull in more. And then as for if we are going to continue the theme, I would just leave that as a decision for the team in the next version of this exact meeting that we do. If people are really excited about wrapping it and getting all of them done, then yeah, we'll just keep on it. And if people are like, hey, I think we did great, but I think there's more value in this other theme now, we'll switch.
Okay, sounds
Yeah, and I think we should use our preset goals as a, guidance when we make those decisions. Both when we decide are the issues going into the sprint, and at the end, kind of measure against those goals where we are and make decisions what we're going to do with the remaining work and things like that.
Yeah, I agree, Milan. And so there's, as I mentioned previously, we're at 4 minutes now. So this meeting's about to be over. We do have an hour blocked for tomorrow to actually go through the issues that end up in ODOT 23 and work through them with any questions that have been asked on them, and make sure they have all of the context and everything that folks need to feel comfortable starting those issues and working on them. So that we'll record that and make sure we publish that as well to the same Octant playlist that's on YouTube. And so yeah, that'll be the process.
Sounds good. And so it's 2 per person up to that, so 12 for all intents and purposes, and then 3 product excellence on top of that, right? So we're shooting for 15.
Yep, that's
Right?
arbitrary number 15.
That's great.
and then yeah, we'll iterate on that. I hesitate. The reason I hesitate to say we're going to do any type of story pointing or scoring is because in my experience, scores always trend to the median, and the real value that you get from scoring is actually just getting all your engineers talking about an issue.
Yeah, I'm not worried about scoring. I was just curious about rollover and general, how big, how much are we going to stuff into this release?
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, we can, let's see, we've got 2 minutes left. Let's go ahead and just wrap up the community meeting with the last 2 minutes. And we will continue to populate ODOT 23. So if you want to, you can watch it happen in slow time as we move stuff into there. I just want to say thank you to everyone for participating in this process. I know it's new, and it might feel like it's a lot, or that it's slowing things down a little bit, but I think ultimately will result in us having a better way of working. So I really appreciate everyone's time and input.
Well, this is great stuff. And if everybody from community has any other ideas how to do this better, please reach to us either through Kubernetes channel or this meeting.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.